Okay, so today we're going to verify trig identities. Now, when we do that, we only want to deal with one side of our equation. And so here we're going to deal with just the left side of our equation, and we want to show that the left side does equal the right side. So when we're multiplying, so because here we are multiplying, we want to try to get everything in terms of sine and cosine. So if you remember, cotangent, if we refer back to our reciprocal identities, cotangent can be written as cosine over sine. And then times sine theta, we can write that as over 1, so we didn't change that. And what happens is we see that we have a sine function in the bottom and in the top. Those reduce or simplify, and so we do see we have cosine theta, and that is equal to cosine theta. So those work. Now, it's not always that easy or straightforward, so what we're going to do is see where it gets a little bit more challenging. And so again, we have left side and right side. We're going to deal with the right side of this equation first. So there seems to be a lot more going on there, so we want to try to reduce that, see what cancels out and what doesn't. So ignoring the left side for right now, we'll need to refer to that in a minute. Because all of these are being multiplied and divided, what we want to do is get everything in terms of sine and cosine. So for example, in my numerator, I have sine of theta times cotangent. And so again, remember, cotangent is the same thing as cosine over sine. We can say sine is over 1 technically. So that is our numerator. Now what does our denominator look like? Our denominator, which is secant, remember, is 1 over cosine theta. So let's deal with our numerator first. We have a sine in the top and in the bottom, so those reduce to 1, so those cross out, so these are gone. And then the only thing left over in this numerator is this cosine, so cosine theta. Now what's left over in the denominator that we didn't do anything with yet is 1 over cosine theta. So let's try to figure that out. Now we cannot divide by a fraction. Instead of dividing by a fraction, we can multiply by its reciprocal. And so if I have 1 over cosine, its reciprocal would be cosine over 1. Now what is cosine times cosine? Well, that is just cosine squared. Now, how do I get cosine squared to be equal to 1 minus sine squared theta? So this is where you have to look at what you're trying to make it equal to first, and remember some of our reciprocal identities, or not reciprocal, sorry, some of our Pythagorean identities. And notice how up here in blue, number 1, in black I mean, but I'm marking next to it in blue, we have cosine squared. Now if I solved for cosine squared, meaning I moved this sine squared over to the other side of the equal sign, how I would do that would be by subtraction. So I would have cosine squared theta equals 1 minus sine squared theta. And now these are equal to each other, meaning I can replace, or I can substitute this cosine squared with 1 minus sine squared theta. Now I see that my right side does indeed equal my left side. So sometimes it is straightforward, sometimes you have to look at the various identities and use those to help you make one side equal to the other.